Good evening. Welcome to the 26th Annual Epic Inspiration Awards. We are so excited to see you all gathered in person here for the first time since February 2020. My name is Emily Spears, and I am this year's current Epic president. Serving as Epic president has been one of the most meaningful parts of my law school career, and it's such an honor to be a part of this public interest community. And this evening is a perfect example of why. Tonight, we'll be honoring 3 practitioners who have contributed so much to Emory's legal community and Georgia's legal community. They have touched countless lives over their career, and they stand as examples of the type of advocates that our students aim to be: dedicated, innovative, and always looking for ways to serve. And tonight also marks the 10th anniversary of our Veterans Clinic here at Emory, and we're excited to celebrate that milestone as well. Tonight, we'll also be celebrating our public interest students, including honoring a 3L public interest student who has personally inspired me and countless others. And we are so honored to have each of these award recipients here with us this evening. And overarching our entire evening is an appreciation of everyone in attendance. First, thank you all to all who make Epic happen by tirelessly supporting public interest students here at Emory. You build us up and empower us to pursue meaningful work. And without your support, so many of us would not be able to pursue these opportunities. I hope you had a moment to take in some of the great pictures and quotes from our slideshow, and that you had a moment to take in the quotes in Hunter Atrium. These reflections highlight what our students' public interest experiences have meant to them, and it's all possible by your generosity. Second, I want to thank the faculty and staff who have made this event happen. Particularly thank you to Georgette Then and Dean Rita Sheffy, who are the engine behind this event and work tirelessly to support public interest students day in and day out. And lastly, I want to thank all the students who are here tonight to honor our recipients, and so many of those students have also volunteered their time to make this event happen. I want to specifically thank the entire Epic board, and I'm going to embarrass you and ask the Epic board to stand for a moment so that we can honor the work they've done this year. It's a joy to work with the entire board, and specifically a joy to work with our 2 wonderful Inspiration Awards chairs, Madison Dodge and Nick Smith, who have worked so hard to make this event a success and bring it back to campus for the first time in several years. And now I will hand it over to Dean Marianne Babinski. Dean Babinski has been a consistent supporter of Epic, and we thank her for joining us here tonight.
Thanks, Emily. As I was listening to Emily speak, I was reminded again of just how fantastic our students are in so many ways. Just wonderful remarks, really echoed some of the things that I hope to say in my few minutes with you tonight, which is just how important Epic is, how important public service is, and how important you are to Emory Law as a whole. Law schools, of course, are involved in legal education and research, and doing that in areas that touch on some of the toughest issues for our society, the challenges we face as a society, all the while with the assumption that people who have attained legal education and developed the skills and knowledge necessary to serve others will actually employ that knowledge and skills to address those challenges. But as we all know, there's a huge issue with access to legal services and actually connecting legal knowledge and skill and help with those who need it most. And Epic and the Center for Public Service and the people in this room here tonight are the matches and the flame and the light that helps make sure that we do make that connection between what law schools are about and those who are in need, and that we keep showing students as they enter law school the ways in which they can ensure that the knowledge and skills that they're gaining will benefit others in society, either through devotion to public interest and public interest careers, or through the kinds of pro bono activities that Dean Sheffy talked about in her remarks in the video. And so I just wanted to thank all of you and to thank our students, to thank Rita and Georgette, and all those whose dedication has made tonight possible, the work that you've done possible, and in particular, because this event really is a sort of key event for this, for those of you who help actually fund these Epic summer fellowships for our students. And all of the students who are on that video and who you are hearing tonight and whose quotes are out in the lobby, would not have been able to do the work that they did if it wasn't actually for the generosity and the financial commitments made by many people in this room and elsewhere to fund those summer fellowship programs. They really make all the difference in whether or not our students are able to take up this work, do the work that they hope may be their life's work, but in any event, take those first steps towards serving the public. I want to echo Emily in thanking you all for being a part of this, the 26th annual EPIC Awards. As you've heard, we're coming back in person, so these students are making something happen that they've actually not seen. I think that's right. You never had the opportunity to come to an in-person event, and you're certainly setting a high standard for the students who follow you. Just a fantastic crowd, great honorees, and a wonderful evening. I also just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge some of the ways in which we are trying to give our students exposure to this work of helping others. Certainly, it happens through pro bono work that students do in school, activities with different student organizations, through our clinics and our clinics for credit, like the Barton Center, like the Turner Environmental Center, the International Humanitarian Law Clinic. But it also happens through these very important programs that are not accompanied by academic credit in the immigration area, for example, through our volunteer immigration clinic and through providing students opportunity for working with the Georgia Asylum and Immigration and Network GAIN, which is going to be featured tonight as we honor GAIN's executive director, Alpha Amin, and through the Emory Law Volunteer Clinic for Veterans, which is a clinic that I've had the opportunity to learn about really more deeply over time. Just a fantastic volunteer opportunity for our students, and also something that's so significant in serving those who have served all of us. And of course, EPIC, the Emory Public Interest Committee, the students who you're meeting tonight, have been the crown jewel, the core of our efforts to really connect students to these opportunities and to create the inspiration to draw students into this work, either as a life's commitment or as part of people's future professional careers. Well, very shortly, our clinical professor, Randy Waldman, will be presenting the annual award to a third-year student for outstanding commitment to public service. And before that happens, I just wanted to offer my personal thanks to Emory Law alumnus Mark Wasserman and his wife, Rebecca, for generously supporting Emory Law and specifically for their support for this award, which is now named for them. And I just wanted to thank Mark and Rebecca, who I believe aren't able to be here tonight, but who really have created a very special way of recognizing an inspirational student. So we'll now hear from Professor Randy Waldman. Thank you all for being here.
The Mark and Rebecca Wasserman Public Service Award is given to a third-year student who has exemplified the greatest commitment to public interest law through his or her work at Emory Law. This year's recipient, Rachel Kennedy, is public interest law at Emory Law School. Rachel is one of those rare students who walk through Emory's doors with all of the markings of a fully formed professional. She has a command of the law, a grounded worldview, and unlimited talent. She could do anything, and she has chosen to pursue service through the law. I would need much more than the allotted 3 minutes to describe Rachel's service just to EPIC, let alone to the greater community. So I'll include a non-exhaustive list of some of the highlights. As a 1L, Rachel served as the 1L rep for EPIC. In this role, she helped launch coffee chats, connecting 1Ls with upper class students involving public interest. She promoted remote volunteer opportunities and suggested ways to improve EPIC grant accessibility for students. During her 1L year, because she wasn't busy enough with EPIC, she also completed pro bono and volunteer hours with Atlanta Volunteer Lawyer Foundation, the Emory Immigrant Legal Assistance Clinic, and Dallas CASA. 2L year, Rachel served as conference chair for the 2021 EPIC Conference on Affordable Housing, externed for a judge, participated in the Juvenile Defender Clinic, and during her winter break, performed pro bono work for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. During this, her 3L year, she served as EPIC treasurer, completed another semester with the Juvenile Defender Clinic, and currently externs as the Southern Center for Human Rights. Rachel spent her summers not at law firms, but utilizing our EPIC grants, interning with the Human Trafficking Legal Center and the National Center for Youth Law. Even in writing her Emory Law journal comment, Rachel advanced the public interest, writing on the harms of the child welfare system and its disproportionate separation of Black and Brown children. Outside of job titles, Rachel is a mentor and role model for her fellow students. She's always willing to review a cover letter, edit a resume, or provide sought-after advice. Over this past winter break, Rachel and I spent a lot of time together. She drafted a motion and a novel constitutional argument on behalf of a clinic client. Last Friday, although no longer one of the Juvenile Defender Clinic students, Rachel appeared in court for a trial on behalf of one of her clients from last semester. She did these things not because they were required or even expected of her, but because this is who she is as a professional. Today, every time I walked into the clinic space, I was met with a confused look and questions about why I was wearing a suit, despite the lack of court. I explained that I was in a suit and mostly shoes, not sneakers. I explained that I was here to present this award to Rachel. Every time the conversation happened, adjectives were presented, maybe because I asked them to write my speech. The adjectives: remarkable, kind, generous, warm, passionate, brilliant, zealous, tireless, dedicated, amazing, human. Together, these perfectly describe Rachel. I'm grateful for having had the opportunity to work with Rachel during her time at Emory, and I cannot think of a more deserving recipient of the Mark and Rebecca Wasserman Public Service Award than Rachel Kennedy.
Tonight, it is my honor to introduce my dear, dear friend, Alpa Amin. She is one of the most compassionate, caring, determined, hardworking, fierce, accomplished leaders in our community who has spent her entire career devoted to serving immigrants. Alpa is the executive director of GAIN, the Georgia Asylum and Immigration Network. But for those of you who don't know Alpa or who haven't had a chance to work with her, I want to share a little bit about her inspiring background. I first met her in 2008 when she was a law student intern at GAIN. It was during this time Alpa had a vision and set out to establish a victims of violence program. With a lot of determination and tremendous focus, along with, and this is really important, some financial support from King and Spalding and Greenberg Traurig, Alpa was selected as an Equal Justice Work Fellow, which launched her career with GAIN. But with this fellowship, so much more happened. It was a turning point for a young organization, 3 years under its belt. While GAIN continued its critical asylum work, the organization was now suddenly able to provide some of the most critical legal services to immigrant survivors of human trafficking, domestic violence, sexual abuse, and many other crimes. GAIN quickly recognized the need for wraparound services in addition to the legal services. And to support the clients, Alpa played a huge role in helping to create and establish the client navigator model in order to put those safety net services, social services in place to embrace the lives of the clients that were getting the legal services they needed. When Alpa became the executive director at GAIN in 2019, she was already very well established as a leader in the field of public interest law in our community. She was highly recognized for her collaborations, innovation, and responsiveness, always in an effort to navigate the ever-changing, confusing, bottlenecked immigration system that we have. But in August of 2021, when Afghanistan fell to the Taliban, ALPA stepped up with a most determined vision to help as many displaced Afghan nationals as possible. Through a collaboration with the International Rescue Committee, ALPA established Project Ally. It quickly, again, broadened GAIN's services, stretching the limits by establishing pro se legal clinics to help Afghan citizens. And within 2 years, this project served more than 500 clients. GAIN recently, and I'm happy to say, hired an Afghan American woman as GAIN's newest Equal Justice Works Fellow. Pretty excited about that. Last year, I had a conversation about ALPA with David Stern. Many of you probably recognize his name. He was the retired executive director of Equal Justice Works. As I told him about ALPA, he said it best when he said back to me, ALPA is the perfect example of what Equal Justice Works is all about. And David called it. It is truly an honor to present tonight's Unsung Devotion to Those Most in Need award to my dear friend, Alpa Amin.
Good evening. My name is Alpa Amin. For 15 years, I have marveled at her brilliance, her grace, her compassion, and her capacity to show up in ways to make our community a better place to be. Cheryl Naja, you are a force and an inspiration to all of us who know you. Thank you for your friendship and for your kind words. And thank you to Emory Law School and the Emory Public Interest Committee for this recognition. It's not lost on me that I stand on the shoulders of giants, including my dear friend, Monica Kant, who 5 years ago stood on this stage to receive this very same award. A few weeks ago, I was speaking with my parents about this award, and as usual, my father gave his hearty congratulations and then said, "See, I told you you would be a Supreme Court justice one day." I laughed, and then I tried to explain to him that that's not how it works. But I've heard him say this kind of thing over and over again to anyone and everyone that will listen. Because again, that is how he sees the world of my possibilities. His daughter is an immigration attorney, and she could be a Supreme Court justice someday. For my parents, anything is possible for me because of the decisions they made to build a better life for another. They gave up the comfort of their surroundings, their family, their traditions, the sound of their native tongue. In many ways, they gave up their own identities as well, their careers, their accomplishments, the very things that served as a source of pride for their parents. They made the difficult choice to come to the United States so that I could dream out loud, so that I could be more than what society expected of me as an Indian woman, so that I could make mistakes and have the opportunity to learn and grow from them, so that I could choose to say no when my obligations and commitments feel like too much, so that I could be vulnerable and unapologetic about who I am and what I need from those around me, and so that I can speak up and speak out against behavior that, whether intended or not, makes another person feel small. This is the life that I get to live because someone made the decision to leave behind their own. The story isn't unique to my family. It's what we hear time and time again from our clients at GAIN. People who came to the United States with nothing but a backpack full of hopes and dreams for their future generations. It has been an honor to be a part of their stories and to be a part of an organization that is committed to protecting their dignity and greeting them with the familiarity of home. This August will be 15 years since I first joined GAIN as a law and policy intern. It has been an incredible journey, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my partner, my colleagues, my mentors, and all of these amazing faces that I see here in the room today. This award may have my name on it, but it's because of you that I'm standing here. Thank you.
The EPIC Award for Outstanding Leadership in the Public Interest recognizes an honoree's involvement with a unique project or person exhibiting a singular dedication and identifying a need and satisfying it. That describes Drew Early's commitment to serving veterans, service members, and their families to a T. A graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point, Drew was commissioned a lieutenant in Ordnance Corps. Since retiring as a lieutenant colonel and becoming a lawyer, Drew has devoted a significant portion of his practice, some may say a majority, to providing pro bono legal assistance to those who have served our country. Several colleagues have noted that there is probably no one in Georgia who knows more about Veterans Administration benefits, the VA's policies and practices, and the reality of how the system functions than Drew. For more than a decade, he has chaired and presented at the annual VA Accreditation CLE program. He also regularly teaches CLE programs on veterans law, not only in Georgia, but across the country. For more than a decade, he has served on the Military Veterans Law section of the State Bar and the Military Legal Assistance Program. In recognition of his dedication to serving veterans, Drew was the first recipient of the State Bar of Georgia's Marshall Tull Award, which is given to one lawyer statewide each year. In 2014, when Lane Dennard, one of the co-founders and co-directors of Emory's Volunteer Clinic for Veterans, retired, Lane and Charlie Shaner knew there was no one better to step in the role of co-director than Drew. Drew served in that role for 8 years and continues to serve as pro bono advisor to the clinic. As a veteran, Drew understands the VCV's clients and the unique challenges they face. He represents clients and their families with enthusiasm and expertise. He fights for those who fought for us by enhancing their quality of life. He also is a valuable resource for students, advising them about relevant substantive law, working with veterans, and just about practicing law. Since February 2017, when Charlie Shaner retired from Emory Law and I assumed some internal responsibility for the Emory VCV, I have relied on Drew for the substantive expertise and for deciding when prospective clients should be represented or referred elsewhere. As we welcomed new staff in 2019 and 2020, Drew was invaluable to helping hire, onboard, and supervise these new attorneys. Drew has a delightful sense of humor, and I look forward to every conversation with him. He has taught me and others how to navigate the VA bureaucracy with patience and a healthy dose of skepticism. Despite his busy practice, he is never too busy to talk and offer his wisdom and advice. But much of what Drew does is behind the scenes, and it often goes unnoticed to many. He just works diligently and thoughtfully to make life better for others. With the Emory VCV specifically, and with veterans and service members generally, Drew Early saw a need for quality legal representation for those who could not afford it. He has seized on the opportunity and is responsible for improving the lives of countless veterans who served our country, as did he. It is a distinct honor and a personal privilege to present the 2023 EPIC Award for Outstanding Leadership in the Public Interest to Drew Early.
Dean Boginski, faculty members, staff, students, and friends, Friends is all inclusive because you're all friends tonight. With some trepidation, I get to follow what Dean Sheffy talked about. And I can tell you that we've had many, many interesting conversations revolving an area of the law that needs all of your assistance. And I direct my comments tonight, and I think most appropriately, to the students, because it's the students that make things happen. And sometimes, as I say, give us an opportunity to plant seed corn to see what happens down the line. My dear friend Charlie Shaner came to me along with Lane and said, we want to do a veterans clinic. I was happy to be supportive of them. And then Lane had some health issues. Lane stood up here though. He stood up on this platform and received recognition for what he did. And he initiated that effort with Charlie and with 2 students. So it was a collaborative effort. It was not faculty, private practitioners, students. They did it together. And that's what the Veterans Clinic is all about. And I would encourage all of the students to consider their opportunities to expand public service within the Veterans Clinic. We have several in the crowd tonight that have ably served in that regard. And I'm really pleased with how successful those students have gone on to accomplish even greater things. To put some things in perspective, we talk about the VA and you just kind of say, okay, it's there. There's a VA. Most of you don't realize that the VA is actually the nation's 2nd largest cabinet agency. The expectation of the American public is it exists to serve. I think oftentimes it's the flip side. So how does that disabled veteran or spouse with no military background at all navigate the morass of the nation's 2nd largest cabinet agency? They do it through the work of the students at the clinic. And then they have the expertise of very learned staff attorneys, such as Carlisa Carson, that guide them in that direction. And occasionally, some of us can jump in and help play. And I call it playing because it's really gratifying. I was thinking about, do I give you quantitative numbers tonight? Do I recite all of the money that's been received that we've been able to give to people that matter? Do we talk about the number of claims processed, the number of wills, powers of attorney that have been done by the clinic? No, I decided not. Instead, it's about touching people. And it's about touch points. It's about touching a widow. Husband passed away of brain cancer. She fought the VA for 10 years. She's a Floridian. She went to the University of Florida to their veterans program for assistance. They called me and they said, we can't handle this. Would you be willing to take a swing at it? And we talked about it, looked at the evidence that was there and said, sure. So next time at bat, she won. Life-changing event, because then she gets free medical care for the rest of her life. She gets a stipend, tax-free, that takes away the burdens and the concerns of getting paid, and making it on a small budget. She gets an accrued benefit of a long-term claim that had been going on, cash payment. That's a life changer. I was talking to Jenna, one of our superstars that was there at the Veterans Clinic. Touch point for her, another little old lady. Doesn't have the expertise to navigate the bureaucracy. Jenna made it happen. Jenna now, touched her in such a way that, yeah, she gets a thank you card, but she gets chocolates from it as well. It's kind of neat when that happens. And sometimes it's not the tangible things, it's the intangibles. We get to help a lot of people that are otherwise in need that you wouldn't have thought about, even with the littlest things. But it's a touch point, and I would encourage all the students here to engage in this very worthwhile work. And again, thank you all for your time.
Good evening. My name is Martin Bunt, and I'm a 2014 graduate of Emory Law. I'm honored to give remarks tonight to introduce our next awardee, Professor Charles Shaner, who served as law professor here at Emory Law from 1975 until 2017. Professor Shaner's legal career has made him to a person who is best defined as a builder. He built or improved institutions that serve and benefit countless students and individuals. Allow me to provide some examples. In the early 1980s, Professor Shaner led the effort to build the Judge E.P. Tull courtroom that is one floor below us. And that courtroom has led to thousands of students learning courtroom skills. In 1987, he took a break from full-time teaching at Emory Law to accept a presidential appointment to serve 3 years as general counsel of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. That job took him all the way to oral arguments at the Supreme Court and case law that affects employment rights to this day. His works continued with Professor Shaner co-founding the Emory Law Thrower Symposium, which since 1995 has brought together great legal minds to discuss the pressing issues of the day. Just last week, 2023 symposium was conducted, and it had the topic of the future of America's efforts to promote the rule of law abroad. In the mid-2000s, Professor Shaner was instrumental in the creation of Emory Law's International Humanitarian Law Clinic. And that clinic strives to bring both law and humanity to modern warfare. In fact, the current director is serving on special assignment at the Pentagon's Office of General Counsel, where she provides direct legal advice to military leaders worldwide. And 10 years ago, in 2013, Professor Shaner was critical in establishing Emory Law's volunteer clinic for veterans, which defined my time at Emory Law. It was Professor Shaner who planted the inspirational seed in myself and Rachel Erdman when we were 2 Wells that we should build a clinic for veterans. And it was Professor Shaner who provided the vital faculty leadership, his own financial support, and his reputation to recruit others such as Lane Dennard and Drew Early that gave the VCV the opportunity to grow into a clinic that has helped veterans receive millions of benefits that they have earned. Lastly, even after retiring from 42 years as a professor of law, Professor Shaner has still dedicated his time to serving as a leader of Pisgah Legal Services, which with his efforts has expanded to provide legal services to those in need in all 18 counties of Western North Carolina and counties in Georgia. Those duties, along with mentoring basketball players at UNC Asheville, mentoring entrepreneurs at local nonprofit, and supporting his wife's work at the Peak Academy, a school aiming to close the opportunity gaps for the underprivileged, show that a person like Professor Shaner, even in retirement, is dedicated to building and serving others around him. Now, please join me in a round of applause for Professor Charles Shaner as he joins me on the stage to accept his much-deserved award for a lifetime committed to public service.
Well, thank you so much, Martin. Martin has always been one of the more enthusiastic people that you'll ever run into. And if it hadn't been for Martin Bunt, we wouldn't have the Veterans Clinic today. So thank you, Martin, for the student leadership that you provided many years ago. I'd like to begin with a few words from a commencement speech by Albert Parr Tull, my mentor and legal hero for whom the courtroom downstairs is named. The professional provides service, but the service he renders is something more than that of the laborer, even the skilled laborer. It is a service that wells up from the entire complex of his personality. He has no goods to sell, no land to till. His only asset is himself. Do not be a miser, hoarding your talents and abilities and knowledge. Rather, be reckless and spendthrift, pouring out your talent to all to whom it can be of service. Throw it away, waste it, and in the spending it will be increased. It is not enough that you do your duty. The richness of life lies in performance above and beyond the call of duty. Practicing and teaching law are complex undertakings. Done wholeheartedly, practice and teaching serve clients and students. But there's further service for those having legal training. We must provide assistance to those who cannot afford the market price of our services. I would like to turn to formation of the Veterans Clinic for lessons about providing legal services to those who cannot afford those services. In late 2012, the State Bar of Georgia sent out a letter to all Georgia law schools saying, we need veterans clinics to assist needy veterans and their dependents. And the dean, whom I approached about creating such a clinic, said, I would love to help, but we have no money. The other law schools in the state all declined. So no school was going to shoulder the costs of a clinic with paid staff monitoring students who were receiving academic credit, the traditional model for a law school clinic. Martin Bunt and I didn't give up. Could we create a low-cost clinic for needy veterans using volunteers? There was no model for such a clinic, and there were 5 serious challenges. First, where would the cases come from? Fortunately, Norman Zoller, who was in charge of the State Bar's Military Legal Assistance Project, agreed to refer future cases. And Lane Dennard, a good friend, and King and Spalding retired partner, agreed to bring his pro bono cases into the clinic to get us started. 2, who was going to supervise these cases? Lane said, I'll supervise my cases with students helping on them. And then he said, I'll also help with new cases. He knew a lot of veterans law at that point in his career. I agreed to supervise appellate matters and oversee Emory's role in developing the clinic. My main focus was on the students and getting the students the sort of experiences that would help them enter the legal profession, just as Lane's main focus, different focus, was on veterans. He was for students and I was for veterans, but we each had our own special focus. Who was going to staff the cases? Well, Martin, with Rachel Erdman's help, enlisted student volunteers and served as a cheerleader for students whose contemporaries had fought in Afghanistan and Iraq. We presented the clinic in a way that students could develop their administrative law skills. Later on, these students could use these skills with any other agency besides the VA, whether it was the SEC, the EEOC, the IRS, any of the other alphabet agencies. 4th, how would we house and administer the clinic? Fortunately, Emory Law agreed to provide space, support from existing clerical and financial personnel, and computer support. My assistant, Marianne D'Souza, was absolutely indispensable to running our operations, as was Michelle Stevens, who kept the book straight. They helped the clinic survive those early years. Last, how would we cover expenses? Even a volunteer clinic has expenses for expert witnesses and so on. And we needed to run the clinic year round. These problems didn't go away for the summer when students go away. So Lane and I each contributed $5,000 apiece, and enlisted support from colleagues, friends, philanthropic entities, and government sources. And fortunately, there were some generous financial supporters, especially King and Spalding and the Selby and Richard McRae Foundation, that allowed us to hire summer interns, support Equal Justice Works fellows, and eventually hire a staff attorney. So with these problems solved, the Veterans Clinic got off the ground. What are the lessons about public service that I come out with at the end of having worked to try to catalyze a number of such institutions? The first is that it takes a whole village of committed people having complementary, not the same, but complementary skills and talents to provide services for those in need. All the pieces, not just some of them, have to come together. The second is that when your talents and experiences can help fill a need, throw yourself into it and find others with skills who share the mission. Create and be part of the village. The third is that small, functioning, mission-oriented villages will attract committed and talented people to preserve and enhance them. And I'm very, very grateful to Drew Early, who stepped up to the plate after Lane retired, to Christopher Pitts and the other fellows who followed him, to Rita Sheffy, who shouldered Emory's contributions in recent years, to Carlissa Carlson, who's the staff attorney for the clinic, and finally, and most importantly, the generation of Emory Law students who have thrown themselves into this enterprise. 10 years, many millions of dollars in benefits to deserving veterans later, I'm deeply gratified that the VCV is alive and well. Please step up in whatever ways you can as volunteers or as donors or as both. Help preserve and develop this worthwhile enterprise. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Madison Dodge, and this is Nick Smith, and we were this year's Inspiration Awards co-chairs. We would just first like to say thank you all so much for coming tonight. It's great to see everybody here back in person. I want to again thank our honorees for being here today, and it was such an honor to be able to be here with you and hear you speak. So if we could all just give one last round of applause to Amin Alpa, Amin, Drew Early, and Charlie Shaner. You are incredible and truly inspiring examples for all of us, but especially for those students who came to law school knowing that we wanted to do this work. And it's really incredible to see people doing it like you do. We'd also like to thank the presenters who came here today, Cheryl Naja, Martin Bunn, and Dean Sheffy. Thank you to Professor Waldman, and congratulations to Rachel Kennedy. It's inspiring to have peers doing the work that you do. And finally, I'd like to thank Dean Babinski for your support, as well as the entire EPIC Executive Board. This event would not be possible without the support of Emory Law staff. So I'd just like to give a few shout outs first to Tiara Copeland for catering and logistics, Brandy Williams in IT, who's been helping us with IT and AV support throughout this entire evening, as well as Kenyatta Greer in communications, Sergine Romius, who coordinated the invitation that you all registered for the event with, as well as Courtney Stombach, who works closely with Dean Sheffy on fundraising for grants.
Thank you to the caterers who are providing the food this evening free of charge so that all of your donations go directly to our summer grants. Those caterers are Nicole's Catering, Bada Bing, and Oakhurst Market. If you have the occasion to use their services, please do so, and please thank them for supporting this event. Also, thank you to everyone who volunteered this evening so that the night ran smoothly. We would like to thank all of our sponsors, professors, and attendees in the audience. It is wonderful to see such a diverse crowd come together to recognize the importance of public service and pro bono work. The EPIC grant would not be possible without your support. Finally, thank you again to Dean Sheffy and Georgette Thin. Without you both, this event and the support the public interest students receive here at Emory would not be the same.
And with that, for the final remarks of this evening, we're going to turn it back over to Dean Sheffy.
Well, thank you, Madison and Nick. And I recognize I'm in the unenviable position between our honorees' inspirational remarks and the reception that's awaiting us downstairs. But I have a couple of important tasks as we close, and so please bear with me for these remarks. We're going to recognize several people who've been indispensable to the event, and I'm not going to go through the people that they've already thanked, but there's a few that I want to highlight. I'm going to acknowledge several of our longstanding donors who have passed away since we were last together, and then I'm going to talk about the money that we raised, which is the other reason we're here tonight. First, the thanks. So as I noted, Nick and Madison have thanked so many people. I simply add my heartfelt thanks to all of them for their support. And of course, I do need to personally acknowledge my partner in the Center for Public Service, Georgette Finn. She handled many, many more things than I have time to recount, and we worked seamlessly together to support the students and bring you this program. I also want to specifically thank several students who were critical to this, and you've seen them all tonight. First, kudos to Emily Spears, EPIC's president, for her engagement and advice. Emily is a true leader who was always available with support, advice, and encouragement without ever micromanaging. And she also was not shy about taking on any task. We'd be in a meeting and she would see a need and she'd say, oh, I can take care of that. And so Emily was wonderful. And she also, this is a talent that not many lawyers have. She also knows how to run a great meeting. I'll also say Nick Smith and Madison Dodge. Madison was a co-chair of this event last year, which was a virtual event. But of course, neither of them had experienced the in-person awards. And so it was both a challenge and also a delight to be able to work with them and describe what this used to be like pre-COVID. And now they've gotten to experience it themselves. It's been a true joy working with them, meeting often, exchanging countless email and documents in a Google Drive as we prepared for tonight. And I'm really going to miss working with them. So please join me in thanking for their extraordinary, Emily, Nick, and Madison for everything that they did to make tonight successful. And of course, I also thank all of you as well, because this would not be successful without all of you being with us and without everyone who has donated. So secondly, on a slightly more somber note, since we last met in person, we've lost two alumni who were longstanding donors, one to EPIC and one to the Veterans Clinic. First of all, Briggs Lovell Tobin, who graduated in '89. Briggs graduated from Yale University in Emory Law. He was a judicial law clerk for a federal judge in New Orleans and then joined Long, Aldrich, and Norman as a corporate lawyer. He later joined General Electric in Connecticut, from which he retired in 2013. He completed the last 5 years of his professional career as the CFO of Ridgefield Academy. Briggs believed in equality and opportunity for law, and his community service activities included service on a local community foundation board and a historic commission. He also worked to increase accessibility to affordable housing in Connecticut. We sincerely appreciate the generous estate gift Briggs Tobin left to EPIC. Next is Thaddeus Sobieski, who graduated in 1958. Thaddeus Sobieski enlisted in the Army Air Corps in 1945 and entered the University of Connecticut under the GI Bill. After graduation, he entered the U.S. Army as a lieutenant serving in the Korean War. He received the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, and a Purple Heart. Mr. Sobieski entered Emory Law and graduated in 1958. He then had a lengthy career with the National Labor Relations Board Regional Office in Atlanta, after which he practiced with Fisher and Phillips and then with Steve Leibel. Upon his death, Mr. Sobieski left an estate gift to Emory, which in honor of his distinguished military service is being used to create an endowment for the Emory Volunteer Clinic for Veterans. We acknowledge both Mr. Tobin and Mr. Sobieski, and we thank their families and colleagues for their support of EPIC and for the VCB. So recognizing those gentlemen brings me to the third thing I want to do before we close. As you all know, we hold this annual event to honor outstanding practitioners like those you've heard from tonight. but also to raise funds for summer grants for Emory Law students who will work this summer for public interest organizations, government agencies, and with judges. All donations and ticket sales for tonight go directly to those grants. We sincerely appreciate every dollar donated to EPIC, every $50 ticket purchased, and every sponsorship. And while we can't individually recognize each person this evening, I do want to acknowledge some of our donors, and you'll see the first list on the screen. Here we list our full grant donors as of this week, individuals, law firms, and others who are funding a full grant, and in some cases, multiple grants or multi-year grants. Each donation at this level will support a student working in one of those organizations this summer, and we clearly appreciate them all. And then on the next slide, we see some of our endowment supporters. Many of you know that we have an EPIC endowment, which generates interest income, which is used each year for summer grants. And with Courtney Steinbach's assistance and her team's assistance, we have added to the EPIC endowment, but we can and do need to do more over the years. As you can also see, we have a number of other individual endowments which are restricted to providing funds for summer grants. Some of them don't quite generate a full grant each year, but all of them are invaluable, and we appreciate these donors. And of course, I'll put in the plug that anyone who has capacity could see your name added to this list as well. Just see Courtney or me after the program. We also have listed here other donations of $1,000 or more, but less than a full grant. Many of these people are longtime supporters, and we thank you for your generosity. And if I have missed anyone that falls in those categories, I apologize. We were trying to make sure we captured everyone and recognized you. We'll be posting all of our donors over the $250 level on the website in the coming weeks. And then finally, I'll add to Dean Babinski's thanks. Special thanks to Mark and Rebecca Wasserman for sponsoring the Outstanding Public Service Award for a graduating student. So the impact of an EPIC grant is significant, and I think you heard some of that tonight. I hope you noticed some of the boards in the atrium with quotes from alumni, and you saw one of the videos that we had earlier. Now, since we're in person again, I get to do this. I couldn't do this very effectively the last 2 years on Zoom, but would every student or alumnus who has ever received an EPIC grant, would you please raise your hands? Awesome. And now I would like for every student who's in the room tonight who's planning to apply for an EPIC grant this year, would you please stand up so we can see you all? Thank you. So that's why we're here tonight. Besides honoring these great people, that's why we're here. We're trying to help these people participate in the employment that they want this coming summer. So if any of the rest of you in the room have not donated yet, or if you can donate more, then I ask that you please do so. Or if you have friends that you think might be willing to, please ask them, and you can reach out to me. You can see on the screen here, we have 2 QR codes. We're trying to get a little more into the 21st century here. So if you want to donate to EPIC, and also since we're honoring the 10th anniversary of the Veterans Clinic, we have a separate link for that as well. And of course, out in the, as we're going out to the reception, there will also be the signs from this event that will have the QR code on it. You can go on the website, you can talk to Courtney or me. There's many different ways you can do it. I have said for the many of the 8 years I've been here so far that I have the best job in this law school. But I will say that the one thing I dislike the most is having to disappoint any student who is eligible and we're unable to fund them with a summer grant. And we cannot fund everyone without substantial support. Last year, we awarded 39 grants totaling $188,000, which was a few less than the 43 grants totaling more than $208,000 the year before. Each of those years, as in prior years, several students received grants from their placements or other sources. However, last year in particular, too many eligible students were disappointed. As you can see from the students who raised their hands tonight or who stood up tonight, we anticipate a significant number of applicants this year. I want to fund them all, but I need your help to do that. Please dig a little deeper this year and ask your friends and colleagues to join us. I am thrilled to report that as of tonight, we have funds of nearly $200,000 toward 2023 summer grants. This exceeds our total from last year, but we still have 3 more months to go before I have to make the decisions about who gets grants for the summer. And I can imagine that we'll have many more students than that amount will fund. So we're going to work diligently over the next 3 months to be able to do that. So for each of you who's already donated this year, thank you. If you can do more, I'll say that again. If you can do more, or if you can donate, please do that as well. And I want to thank all of you for supporting our students, not just with the donations, but for being here. It's important for them to see so many practitioners and people in our community. It's public interest community is the best, and the public interest students at Emory are the best. And it's been a pleasure working with them all these years. So finally, and we are almost to the finally here, please mark your calendars for Tuesday, February 6, 2024. We always own the first Tuesday in February for these events. So make sure if anybody has a question, just the first Tuesday in February, that's when we'll meet again. Also, if you want to come to the EPIC conference in the fall, the first Saturday in October is when the EPIC conference is held. Also, please join us next year and consider nominating, you've heard these great people this evening, consider nominating people that you know who haven't been recognized before for an award next year. So now I'm going to release almost everybody in the audience to be able to go downstairs for the reception, but I do ask that the following people come down front so we can take some pictures. Our photographer is going to come down. Dean Babinski, the honorees, the presenters, Emily, Madison, Nick, any of the e-board members that are still in the room, and Georgette, if she's in the room, although I know she's running around trying to make sure the reception is set up. We'll do this as quickly as possible, but we really want to capture some more pictures of these folks. And anybody else in the group, you'll have plenty of time to connect with these great people when they come downstairs shortly. So thank you all from the bottom of my heart for your commitment to Emory Law, public interest students, and to public interest. We'll see you shortly, and so have a great evening.